What's going on, people? Welcome to another episode of the Off the Ball podcast with me, your host, Chris LeBron, and we got a special show for you today. We're gonna dive into, the Denver Nuggets winning the NBA championship. We're gonna talk St. John's basketball because it is on, it is back. The city is popping again with New York City basketball. St. John's making another, making splash just this off season. So we'll dive into that, and we're gonna get into the NBA draft. But my guest today, my guy CT, what's going on, my brother?
Chris, how's it going, man? Thanks for having me on. Great to finally be back doing this, and riding high after that championship last night. So thanks for having me on.
Yes, yes. And if you don't know CT is a Denver Nuggets fan. He covers the NBA draft. He is a St. John's fan. So, that's why I got him on the show because a lot of these things are it's on. He's the happy. He look at it. Look at his face, man. Look. He is the happiest man in the world. The draft is what 9 days away. His team just won a chip. College basketball team, got Rick Pitino in the building and finally, getting some enthusiasm, in New York City, which is desperately needed by that team. But let's get right into it, CT. The Denver Nuggets have won their first world champ, right? Their first, this is number one.
First in 47 years.
First championship in 47 years. They defeated the Miami Heat in 5 games, which I predicted at 5. I mean, I counted out Miami in every series. I thought the sweep in the first round, Knicks in 5, and I had Celtics at 6. So finally,
You got
the prediction right.
One.
Yeah, I got the last one right. But the Denver Nuggets are your world champions. Nikola Jokic, Finals MVP. Jamal Murray had a tremendous run. Aaron Gordon. What a redemption story. People counted him out after Orlando. He really showed that. But CT, just give me your thoughts. Your team, world champions. How you feeling, brother?
Yeah, no, it's a great feeling. Like we just said, first one in 47 years. So, great to finally have that feeling since they haven't won one before. But yeah, for me, it was just great to watch. Seeing how the Nuggets kind of navigated each series was pretty cool to watch from, I'd say, like a tactical standpoint. Seeing how the matchups were played and the Nuggets going through, Jokic playing against Anthony Davis and KD and Booker and Anthony Edwards and then Jimmy Butler. Finally, it's just, to me, I think that was a really, really great run as far as Jokic taking down a bunch of MVPs, former MVPs, former All Stars, players who are all time greats. So to see him do that, I think he's finally, I think he's established himself before, someone who's going to be, all time great as well. But to see him get a championship, going through those players, I think was really special. And again, I think, the Nuggets finally having a healthy team was, really integral to their success this year. So it was great to finally see all the pieces, come together finally to win a championship.
I think you hit it on the head. Healthy.
Yeah.
We finally got to see this team truly, healthy. And, obviously the last few years with Jamal Murray, after the bubble tearing his ACL, we haven't got to see this team at full strength. And we saw what happens when they're at full strength, that, they're a championship, caliber team. And it's crazy because, we talked about it. Like there's a lot of people, even myself, for, probably till, the turn of the new year where it's like, yeah, they're good, but it's like, are they for real? Are they for real and all that? Like, can Murray be that Robin, right? We always talk about Batman and Robin, and when you have a star player, and he is a superstar Joker now, because I know my superstars are like very limited. It's a you got CT to get in my superstar, VIP. You got to be the elite of elite, and Joker is officially in the room for me. I only got a few guys in there, but he's in there and all that. But to get to that, superstar, you need that co-star. And it's like, can Jamal coming off of it, is he going to be that guy? And, are the other pieces, Aaron Gordon going to be, we all know about, with Michael Porter, the ups and downs. And we saw that a lot even in the finals. But like, that was things like, can Michael Porter, what Michael Porter are we going to see and all that? And felt like for me and a lot of, I felt a lot of people like once the turn of the new year happened and the whole craziness of the MVP stuff, like, because that he was the runaway, right? he was running away with that, and then obviously, feel like the media took over that MVP stuff and all that, and just got absolutely insane and all that. So, there were some doubters, but I remember just going into the playoffs too, and like they're not. Who's going to beat them? Like I remember there was talk of like, oh, if the Lakers see him in the first round, everybody's picking the Lakers. It's like,
I know.
and I remember scratching my head. I was like, really? Why? Because they play. Yeah, and the Lakers were playing good basketball, and obviously they have LeBron James, and I was like, really? We're really doing that? And obviously, they want to play him in the conference finals. But for you, what was the turning point of the season where you were like, you know what? Yeah, I think we're that squad. This is it. If we're healthy, this is we're gonna make a deep run.
Yeah, I think for me it was a couple games. I think the one game against the Grizzlies where the Nuggets, finally pushed themselves into that number 1 seed, because the Grizzlies were basically on their tail toward the end of the year. I think they were like 3 games out, and then the Nuggets played them for basically the 1 seed. The Nuggets won in a blowout, so that was a game for me that kind of signified that they were going to be, that number 1 seed and a team that could reach the finals. A couple other games too against the Celtics too. The Celtics were the top seed for most of the year, and then the Clippers game as well. But just seeing the talent and just seeing their starting 5 is so potent. Their bench was a problem throughout the year, but their starting 5 was so good. You just need, as we saw in the playoffs, it's kind of funny. You had like 6 to 7 guys really for the Nuggets establish themselves as key contributors. So you really just needed those 5 guys to make a difference. And Bruce Brown was like a super 6 man, like a 6 starter basically. So yeah, I'd say those were like key moments in the season that like really kind of differentiated for me that they were for real this time. But just seeing them healthy, I just always thought that they had the talent, and especially when the Nuggets traded for Aaron Gordon back in 21 after the bubble. They had like 8 games where they ripped off a win streak and they were undefeated. So that was a time for me too where I thought this could be it. I thought they were pretty young at the time too. Murray was young. MPJ was only in his 2nd year coming off of the back surgery. So they were still relatively young, coming off that bubble series too. I just didn't think the pieces were all in place at that time. And I think now the pieces are finally there where, we have good role players. The superstars are in place. Like you said, Murray was that guy this year in the playoffs where he's the number 2, and undoubtedly he proved himself in that regard. So I think those were kind of those key moments that really, kind of sparked it for me that I thought, this team really has a chance. And I think their confidence too was unshakable. So great to see that. And then big time championship last night.
Yeah, and like you said, just having that confidence that like everybody's doubting us. Everybody thinks if we're we play the Lakers, the Lakers are gonna run through us, because we don't have a bunch of superstars and all that. And it's just like, you took care of business in the first round against Minnesota, right? And for Jokic, like, every series he was going against some solid bigs. It wasn't going against a bunch of scrubs. First round going against Cat and Gobert, and just and second round going against the Suns, and then Ayton, was a solid big and all that. He made Ayton look so small that the Phoenix won't no part of him. He got Monty fired. He got them going up in flames and all that. And then with the Lakers and all that, him and AD just took care of business on that end. But what I feel like was a turning point, and it goes back to a few years back when you lose Jeremy Grant, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, he went on and got a nice payday from Detroit, right? I believe, right? And you missed that. Missed that size. That size from him, and that that kind of that vet leadership. And I feel like you guys are like, all right, we kind of need that type of player,
right?
And then there's you go to Orlando and you get Aaron Gordon. I feel like that's one of the key turning points of like getting this thing going. Obviously, getting Jamal Murray healthy is another big thing, but like getting a player like Gordon, because he was just so crucial, especially in Miami, because Jimmy Butler. He was, the first 3 series, he was able to get mismatched on, especially on pick and rolls and all that, and be able to get to the bucket.
Yep.
He wasn't. If Jamal's on him, Even if they tried to, guess what? You got 6'8", 6'9" Aaron Gordon right there, and Jimmy just wasn't able to do what he was able to do in the first 3 rounds against. And I think Aaron Gordon, his kind of his maturation, an Orlando top 5 pick, a lot of pressure, right? That comes
Yep.
off the bat being a top 5 pick, and Orlando just not. It was not the best situation and all that, trying to be the face, and he was not that guy, and this was always his role. And this was always his role. And that's one thing, and we'll talk about that when we talk about the draft later. Like, if we look at players more like this and like just look at their with like these type of roles, I think we could have a better feel of guys and all that. And this was his role, and this is who he is. And everybody loves Aaron Gordon. Even everybody loves Aaron Gordon, and he played great. He was a big piece to you guys within but the role players, man. Just talk about the role players, because you talk about, guys, superstars in a role, Bruce Brown and all that. Like, just talk about the role players, because obviously we know about Nikola and we know about Jamal, but obviously you guys don't win a championship if it's not for, KCP and Gordon and all these other guys, Bruce Brown and company, putting in their part.
No, for sure. I think you make a great point, Chris, about Aaron Gordon, especially his maturation process. I remember when he first got traded in 21, the Nuggets, for me, I think that was a great deal for them. Trading Gary Harris, he was a longtime Nugget, so it was a shame to see him go from a personal standpoint. But as far as being objectively about basketball, it was a necessary move. Yeah. And Gordon coming to the fold, the talk around that trade was, is he going to be bought into that role, quote unquote, as a guy who's like a 4th or 5th option. And undoubtedly he was. I think he looked in the mirror and said, what, if I could win a championship contributing on a team like this that has pieces in place already, I think that would be the best thing for my career. And, I think he proved the doubters wrong. He was great this year. He did a lot of the dirty work too, especially with defensive matchups, going against, Karl Towns in the first round, second round, KD and Booker, third round, LeBron James and Anthony Davis. And then finally to close, he goes against Jimmy Butler. I mean, that's a gauntlet of offensive players that he had to guard. And I think he did a hell of a job. So yeah, his role, being great in his role, I think was something that the Nuggets don't win a championship without him, without his defensive contributions. And I think his chemistry with Jokic was really, really apparent on offense too, especially last year when, Murray and Porter were out. I think that was a benefit of that season was Jokic and Gordon kind of developing some chemistry on the offensive end. And then, like you mentioned too, KCP was such a big time addition. Trading Amonte Morris and Will Barton, like I said again, when you have a team like the Nuggets who aren't a big market team, and you have guys you get in trades and are drafted, those guys kind of mean more to the franchise and to the fan base than that typical big market team. So it was a shame to see those guys go. But like I said, objectively speaking about basketball, it had to be a move that you had to make. And KCP is a guy who has championship experience. He knocked out the Nuggets in the Western Conference Finals in 2020. And he's a guy who's just a veteran leadership, really, really good defender. Like we said, going against Anthony Edwards in the first round, going against Booker, against the Lakers, he didn't really have that, decent of a matchup. And then he, guarded Butler here and there in the finals as well. So you just need guys like that who are just willing to buy in and compete for a role. And those two guys in particular as starters, filled their roles admirably. And then Bruce Brown, getting him a free agency was, to me, the icing on the cake as far as the Nuggets just kind of getting the whole roster together, as far as you need versatile defenders to surround Jokic, Murray, and Porter with. And the Nuggets got those 3 guys. And I want to mention too, Christian Brown, in the draft last year. I know you being a draft guy, you probably seen that too. He won the NCAA championship last year, and then he won this year as well. I think he's the 5th player in history to do that. And he had a really big role as a rookie in the playoffs, which is really unheard of, for contending teams. So credit to, Michael Malone, the coach, for really trusting in him and giving him a role in the finals. And I think, game 3, he was really good. He was, one of the best players to make a difference in that game for the Nuggets winning. So, the role players were important to surround your stars with. So I think we're going to see going forward, for all teams, but especially the Nuggets, like the role players are such a significant part of a championship run.
Let's talk about coach, because I think the first 3 years with you guys, I don't think you made the playoffs, right?
No, he didn't. Nope.
Didn't. And we know how coaches just after two, I mean, after 1 year, you might be gone.
Yeah,
Some coaches half a year. And it's just like because we just see everybody's just trying to look for that that fix quick. 2 years you ain't get it done. It's the patience in the NBA is very very limited. There's not a lot of patience in the NBA. So when you hear a coach when Malone doesn't make the playoffs in the first 3 years, it really shows to the Nuggets and the front office that you know they preach patience. They believed in him because, like I said, there's coaches that just don't last. After if you don't make the playoffs in 2 years, you're gone. We're seeing in this cycle. We're seeing championship coaches get fired.
it's crazy, right?
Let alone coaches that don't have success. Championship coaches get fired, and so I got to give kudos to Denver and the organization for giving him, letting him build with these guys. Because he came in with Jokic, Murray comes in the next year. So just talk about him and his maturation, along with, and how much you feel like he should get credit. Because we also don't give coaches a lot of credit too. We're always going to say, well, Jokic, and listen, it's that is probably true because to
Right.
be a good coach, you need good players, right? But
Yep.
like, talk to me about Coach Malone and his maturation. Like I said, doesn't make the playoffs the first 3 years, still keeps his job and made the playoffs every year since, and now is a world champion. So talk to me about him and his progression throughout the years, till winning a championship.
Yeah, I think for Coach Malone, there's been a lot of people that were vocal within the Nuggets. The media, some in the media, some in as fans that really wanted him gone after the past, 2 to 3 years. They didn't want to stick by him as far as they thought he underachieved, or some of his coaching in particular with Michael Porter Jr. and his treatment of him. People thought that was not really suitable for the long term. For me, of course, you're gonna have criticism about a coach. I'm sure you and Tom Thibodeau have disagreements as well, right? So
Oh yeah.
that's all part of the process. But for me, I've never wanted Malone fired just because I see what he brings to the table as a coach, and I think he's got really defining traits that help him as far as what makes him stand out compared to other coaches. And he's somebody who's really laid down a culture of accountability, of players being together and like a family aspect, believing in different guys. And I just think that's such a rare trait for coaches to have, especially in this day and age where it's a player driven league. So the coaches really have to be kind of amenable to the players and, really believe in them. So for him just being that guy for over the past however many years he's been coaching in Denver, probably around like 8 7 8 years, has been great to see. And I think he's gotten better as a coach, honestly, as well. He's been more adaptable as far as the roster goes. He's been willing to give young guys a chance. Like we saw, he played Christian Brown, a rookie, in the finals. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
2 or 3 years ago, he wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
He trusted Michael Porter Jr. in some key moments in the past where he simply didn't, just because he was inexperienced. Um, he's believed in Jokic and Murray their whole career, and those guys rave about him. So yeah, I think even from a tactical standpoint, as far as like adjustments and ways to attack on offense and defense, like he just has such a great strategy of what to do. Even though you have Jokic, like you mentioned, he's obviously the main guy, per se, but I don't think the Nuggets win a championship if there was another coach in Malone's place. I think he's been that great and that integral to what Denver's become. So honestly, it was really great to see him finally get over the hump and win a championship last night. And he's a
Oh,
Queens guy too, so he's from New York.
yep. He's a New York guy, and he was able to get the job done. Like I said, allowed to build with that young core, and go through the ups and downs of having a young core like that. And like you said, I heard people want him gone too, but everybody wants every coach fired. If you don't win
Yeah,
a championship, you know. But like I said, kudos to the Denver for sticking with him and trusting him and developing Jokic, Murray, and Porter, and giving the young guys chances and all that. And what's good about this is you got this core for I know Bruce Brown's a free agent,
yeah, he's the
but
only
you
one.
might have guys. You got guys, Watson you took in the first round last year. Maybe guys step up in that role if Bruce Brown gets the bag and he goes somewhere else. But for the most part, you got a big part of your core, returning. So that's very cool. And so you might be able to get back here next year. So that should be very exciting if you're a Denver Nuggets fan for sure. So but yeah, world champions. Denver Nuggets are the world champions, So I know you're excited. I know, the state of Colorado is excited, Denver, the city, so big things, but it just for I wasn't gonna say this, but I know a lot of Jokic and like where his legacy and all that, but do you think he's top 10 all time as a center?
As a center, I think for sure. I think he's definitely top 10. I think he's on the border of the top 5 right now. I'm pretty like bad with historical comps, but I think he's definitely up there as far as I'd even say probably right now top 25 player overall. This is just look at the accolades. 4-time All Star, 2-time MVP. He could have had a third this year as well. 1-time Final MVP, 1-time champion. I think the accolades are really stacking up for him, and I think this is just the beginning. So I think we're going to see in the coming years, health provided, of course, him really kind of elevate that ladder of the historical ranks, which is pretty cool to see.
That is fun
Um,
too.
yeah, but I think for right now, I think he won the Finals MVP. I got to say he's the best in the world for now. But yeah, for sure, like top, I'd probably say like top 7 center right now of all time, and top 25ish player around there.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
The damn not winning 3 in a row is gonna be like something we're gonna look back down the line and like, something so silly is like he should have won it. He should have
yeah,
won 3 in a row. Like because we didn't want to give it to him. Like it's like that's not how the award should be based on. It should just based on, well, if he's the best player this year, then I guess he's gonna win 3 in a row. And how silly would it have looked, if you didn't give it to him because of that, and then like knowing that he's just won the championship, but like now we won't look back into history and be like, wow, he won 3 MVPs in a row, then he won the championship. Like,
that would have
wow,
been crazy.
that'd have been crazy. Now it's just like, well, 2-time MVP, and it's like, but well, we got to tell stories when we're old and be like, well, he should have won it. We're gonna be the old guys, like, oh, well, he should have won it, but the damn media, gave it to Joel.
Yep.
Now the pressure shifts
Oh yeah.
because
A lot
it
of pressure
flipped,
on
right?
him.
People were like, oh, well, Joel should have won last year, and Jokic has all the pressure because he's back to back. Well, just like that,
Yeah.
now the pressure is going to be a whole lot of pressure is going to be on Joel because, Jokic just won a world championship. So, we'll see what happens, but that's I'm happy for you, the fans and all that. One day, CT, man, you don't know if the Knicks ever win the championship. Whatever
I'll
you
be in the
saw in
building.
Denver, multiply that by 80.
Oh, of course.
The
I
city
know,
will be
man.
shut down. You know how it is
I
being
know
in
being in the
tri-state
area.
area.
Of course.
It will be crazy, but the only time I get to do that is in 2K. So, hopefully,
Hey, maybe soon.
hopefully we get close. I feel, last time I felt like 2012, 2013, I felt like we were close, and then we didn't make the playoffs 2 years ago. So we'll
bad.
see what happens. But we're in better hands now. So we'll see what happens. But speaking of New York, this when you think New York, you think of the Knicks, right? But as far as basketball wise, think of Rucker Park. You don't really think about college basketball unless it's like Big East, and all that. But you don't think about the actual teams. May Syracuse, but like when people like, oh, why don't you a Syracuse fan? Because I'm a Duke fan,
Right.
because like I said, we didn't have that. St. John's wasn't really, popping when I was there, when I was growing up. So I had to pick a team essentially. But St. John's. And finally, right? Finally, like they taking things a little serious. They hired Rick Pitino. They hired the man. He came from my own. Obviously, he went through all the stuff for Louisville and all that. But whatever. It is what it is. Right? And it's the one job it's one of the few jobs in the country where I feel like you have to get someone who understands the identity of that city that they're playing in, right? Usually,
Right.
most other jobs, you can get anyone, if it's just whatever big time coach, if it's, a Texas, you can get a guy who's from wherever, right? He's from, South Carolina, and as long as he can recruit, whatever, right? Or any other job, right? But New York, St. John's, and they've tried this before, right? Plenty. It's like with Mullen, like, and it was like, well,
Right.
and they thought, right, it made sense, like, oh, New York guy, Hall of Famer, all this, and like, Well, he wanted to be a part-time head coach, essentially. you know, so like, all right, it didn't really work out and all that. But Rick Pitino is the head man. And I always felt like he was trying to look for that right job, right? I know I think we all felt like Iona was just, all right, you got to, step back a little bit. Obviously, up in Louisville, and he did a good job at Iona, by the way, very good job, and all that. But he's the head man. Was he? Was he the number one target for you? Like, because to me, once they fire a coach, I was like, it has to be Pitino.
100%.
I was like, it can't be anyone else.
Yep.
It can't, and you hear names, and I do a college basketball podcast too, Get a Bucket podcast, and I was talking to my host, and he was naming some names. I was like, no, you know who the only man for the job? He's like, who? I was like, it's Pitino. It's literally Pitino or bust. Like,
right.
It literally, it just has to, because he's not getting any younger. It's like, you got to do it now. So for you, was it 100%? It had to be Pitino. It couldn't be anyone else.
100%. It was definitely Pitino. He was right in their backyard too at Iona, so it just made complete sense. And he got cleared of all of the the allegations against him. So I think that it gave St. John's the runway to make that hire, especially being in the Big East as more of a it's more of a Catholic institution, things like that. So they definitely want to keep their their righteous name. So I understood it, like the hesitation from some people in the past and things like that, but. I think for now he was just too good of an option to pass up, and historic coach, legendary Hall of Fame coach. He's won everywhere he's been, Louisville, Kentucky, you name it. Coach,
he won a national championship at Louisville. I know they don't want to say it, but we all know
they
won a national championship there.
Yep, got to give it to him. He's coached NBA talent in Mitchell and Terry Rozier, and it's been fairly recent. You know what I mean? So yeah, he was the head man for me for St. John. Just made complete sense as. New York guy, someone who I feel as though really knows the landscape of college basketball, even though I feel like it's changed, especially with the the NIL and more monetary value going to that aspect. But the guy can coach. And the problem with St. John's in years past is they haven't had good coaches from tactical standpoints. Nice guys. Like Coach Anderson was a great guy. Someone who's, I would say, as far as college basketball coaches goes, he's a good coach. You had a winning record. The times I said on Twitter a bunch too, the times have changed as far as offenses go and in college, and the game is more fast, and he just had really an outdated system. So, a shame to see him go, but the necessary change was made. And Pitino, for me, like just even watching some of his offense that he ran for, he coached in the Greek league, Panathinaikos out there, and the offense he was running was just really modern. You just see, NBA teams run what he's running, and good college teams as well. So I think it's going to be a really welcome change for St. John's. We see this year the offense being run properly and sets being made and players being put in advantageous advantages. I think that's going to be really, really cool to watch. And I think the roster is shaping up to be really nice too. So I think a lot to be excited about. And for me, I think St. John's is going to be back in the tournament this year. I really feel it.
I mean, the last time they won a tournament game is over. It's got to be over 20 years, right?
Oh yeah,
like a decade. Like around. It's been a long time.
Yep.
Only a couple tournament appearances and all that. And and he made a splash just recently, right? He made a big splash with Simeon Welcher, who was supposed to go to Carolina, wound up decommitting, and there was a whole Twitter thing with Armando Bacot. I forgot exactly what he said, but it would kind of felt like it was directed towards Simeon, and then Pitino swoops in and gets him, and it's like, okay, yeah, we're gonna see more of this and all that. And like, we're already seeing the effect of this and all that, and I think it's really created a buzz around the city, like because it's once not a lot of people talk about college basketball in the and especially in New York City,
right?
And all that. So it's and in tri-state area basketball period, it's definitely on the come up. As far as college basketball, we got a lot of good. Rutgers, is on the come up. They've been good the last few years, and my good recruiting class coming in. Seton Hall, is doing good. And obviously St. John's. If you got St. John's going, it's definitely going to be healthy. And then, like I said, you got Pitino, but like I said, I and then they got Soriano coming back, who's a double machine. That's big time.
Yep.
And that's big time. So I think, Pitino is going to set his mark. And the Big East is tough. We all know the Big East it's a dogfight to get out of it. UConn national champions and all that. Nova should be back on the come up. That Georgetown should be back on the come up. So Big E's gonna be fine, but Pitino, I like you said, bro. I thought, the minute Coach Anderson got fired, I was like, it's gotta be Pitino. It just there's no other. Like, I don't care about any other options. And I felt like St. John's felt the same way. Like, we can't just keep being mediocre.
Right.
Yeah, it's just at one point, are we going to take it serious? And it's like, if we're ever going to make this move, it has to be now, because he's going to take a job. He's going to take a job, and it just felt like it's a match made in heaven. And it feels like he is New York. He understands New York. And I think he's going to be able to flip out. He's going to flip more New York kids. I think to keep the kids in New York, which is very hard to do. If he's able to do that, he's going to inject a lot of more blood into this program and into the New York City basketball scene, where kids are going to want to stay. And that's been the big thing. It's CT, the kids aren't. St. John's is never an option for a lot of these 4-star, 5-star New York kids. They're always going somewhere else. So if we can keep them there like what they did in the 90s and the 80s, that to me is just going to be really great. Great for the program, great for college basketball. If you have the market, especially a New York City market that has just kind of been irrelevant for a long time, you get them going. It's good. It's going to be fun, but I'm really excited. And I'm not even a St. John's fan, but it's in their backyard and all that. But it's like, if there's a program I root for other than Duke, it is definitely St. John's and all that. So, happy, very happy. I think good things going to be happening there, big time. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm very, very excited. Very excited about the direction they're going through. But also, something that's coming up soon is the NBA draft. And like I said, you've been on my show before doing a lot of the mock drafts. We did in the last few years or so, and the draft's coming up. Just give me some of your thoughts about about just the overall class and all that. It feels like it's been a strong class, going through it. I mean, I feel like we're going to see guys who are probably first round picks going to be dropping in the 40s and all that, simply because there's so much talent. And I think now since Miami, Denver, a lot of good role player, I think those guys are going to be even more valued than all that. So I feel like we're going to see a lot more guys, have more success with, people really evaluate role players and not going for trying to get the big three and all that. And especially with the new CBA and all that, we ain't going to see a lot of that. And then I never was big on that anyway. I always felt like the way Denver, that's how, a team should be built. You want a complete team, because that's who really wins championships anyway. So just give me some of your thoughts, and then we'll go through some players and all that that you like, and then give me some sleepers that you like. But just overall, your take on this class.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think you make a great point about especially with drafting. Certain spots in the draft as well. Like you saw the last couple of champions, what the Bucks have done with Giannis, picking him, back in the lottery. With they got Chris Middleton as well. He was a late pick. The Warriors with Steph Curry, he was a top 10 guy, but he wasn't number 1 overall pick. Klay Thompson, Draymond Green was in the second round. Then you flash forward to the Nuggets this year, and Nikola Jokic is the best second round pick to ever play the game.
Second round pick, pick 40. What Taco Bell? Like that's the famous thing. He got picked during like a Taco Bell commercial or something like that.
Yeah, picked during the Taco Bell commercial. It was pretty funny.
That's crazy.
100%. And then the Nuggets had Aaron Gordon, who was a top 5 pick, but MPJ slipped to 14. Murray was a top 7 guy. So it's pretty cool to see these teams the past couple of years really build through the draft. And kind of take off and let them kind of grow.
That's how it should be, CT.
100%.
Through the draft. I know everybody wants the flashy free agents. They want to trade for this guy. That. How many times does that really work out? How many? It very rarely, right? It's usually teams that build through the draft. Lakers, but like teams that build through the draft usually, and if they do it right, those are the teams that are gonna win championships.
Exactly. No, for sure. And the Celtics, another example with Tatum and Brown and Marcus Smart. So it's just like drafting really, for teams that don't draft well, it doesn't end well for organizations. You have to nail picks I always say if they nail picks on the margins, right? Like those guys weren't lottery picks, so you have to really be paying attention to where you're
Oh
picking and
yeah.
who you're picking
Mhm.
and things like that. So yeah, for me, just to answer your question about the class, yeah, I like the class for the most part. I think the second round has a lot of guys who I like that could be contributors. Like we're seeing guys in that range be more older and guys who contribute to a rotation. Like we just saw Christian Brown for 21st pick contribute on a championship team. So there's guys that are older now that are coming into the league more polished and established where they can contribute on contending rotations. So I think
Mhm.
that's a pretty interesting aspect of the draft. And I feel like the draft's kind of like, without the exception of the top, like with Victor and Brandon Miller, like those guys are more young, so you're gonna get more of the upside. But I feel like it's getting older as far as like past the lottery. A lot of
Mhm.
players are coming in older and more established, to help right away. So I think that's pretty cool aspect of where we're at with the draft. But yeah, overall, like I like the lottery for the most part, and then I like the early second round having some guys there that's could be depth options as well.
Yeah, that's my favorite part of the early second round. Like you
That's
said,
always fun.
it's that's finding those guys to me is the like we all know Victor. He's gonna be Scoot and all that, but who are some guys that who are your five? I think everybody has their guys that they just love and like, and I'll tell you my guys after that I absolutely love. But just give me your guys that like no matter the range and all that you just like these are just my guys.
Yeah, for sure. I think I like Cam Whitmore a lot from Villanova. He's a guy who I saw a decent amount in the Big East, just being a versatile option, improving shooter. He's a good height at 6'6", 6'7" ish range. I really like Cam Whitmore.
Strong. He's
Really strong.
strong.
He's really strong. Really strong. I think he's a prototypical, fit for any team, especially in the top five, top eight ish around there. I like Anthony Black from Arkansas, guy who could, pretty smart with the ball in his hands, could run pick and roll. And then two, I really like Grady Dick from Kansas. You really can't bet against Kansas guys at this point. I
Yeah.
think. See Agbaji last year. You see Christian Brown this year. Like Kansas always turns out some really good players, and I just like Grady Dick's all around skill set as far as a shooter. Someone who's pretty tall, 6'7" wing, could pretty good defender as well. Yeah, I like Nick Smith from Arkansas too, 6'5" guard. He came off an injury this year, so he's kind of hit or miss toward the beginning of the year. But another guy who I really like as a guard in that range. And then probably two more guys that I like. I really like Tariq Whitehead from Duke, your guy from Duke there. Like we said, injury kind of derailed his season a bit, but I think once he gets healthy, I think he's going to be a really good player. Someone I actually have close to the lottery right now on my big board.
Mhm.
Um, I think we see in years past, guys with injuries like that, you just got to let them heal and trust in the upside and what they
He
contributed
could
beforehand.
he could shoot too, and if
Yep.
you look at his high school film, you see some of that explosiveness. Not that he's a crazy super athlete, but you see it, and you didn't get to see that at Duke. Obviously college too. There's not a lot of spacing too, so that you have to figure out too. But if he can get back some of that explosive, like I said, if you're gonna have to let him heal up and not rush him, but if you look at his high school stuff, you're like, man, if I can get that version of Derek, you might get yourself, he's probably a top 5 to 10 player,
Yep.
if you get that version.
For sure. That's why for me, I always bet on the upside guys, even with the injuries in this
Hmm.
class. Just too talented to pass up. And then probably one more guy for me that I like is Colby Jones out of Xavier. Uh,
He's in
it's
my
always the
five.
Big East guy. It's always the Big East guys, man. And then he's a guy for me. I really like as a guard. Really heady guard. He's not the quickest guy in the world, but can defend on and off the ball. Decent playmaker, pretty good shooter as well. Just somebody who I really like in that 20 range. Who I think contribute for a lot of teams right away. So those are my top five guys that I have. But like I said, I like the depth of this class and the top of the range as well.
There's just a lot of good basketball players. Like I don't find myself not liking a lot of guys. Like
Hmm.
I'm like, yeah, if that guy goes to the right team, he could be a contributor.
Right.
Like there's a lot of guys that I feel like, yeah, they're gonna be contributors in this league. Like there might not be a lot of the blue chips, like the top 2, 3 guys might be blue chippers, but there's going to be a lot of good basketball players that are going to be helping teams, in the next few years that we're going to be talking about. But some guys I like. I'm a big Kobe Buffkin guy.
I like
Big.
Buffkin too.
I loved his progression throughout the year at Michigan. I think he's a 3-level guy, improved as a perimeter shooter and all that. I think there's some things defensively he does. He finishes at the rim, just a lot of things I like. Jordan
Big guard.
Hawkins, big guard too. Yeah, 6'5", 6'6", strong and all that. Jordan Hawkins, he
Big
just
East
like
guy.
he's just moving around and all that, and just like he's so smooth with his shot. It's just like I know people like, well, he can't get. I don't care if he can't get to the bucket. That's not what I'm drafting him for, And then I honestly, there were some games I watched. I'm like, okay, he could sneak up on you
Yeah.
athletically. He's a little sneaky. Like I saw some play. He's wiggling through people and getting to the basket. That's not his forte, but you know. If you're just loading up on him on the perimeter, he could get to the cup and finish. So I think that I love him. I think he's just a sniper. He's going to make a team very happy and all that. Like you said, Kobe Jones, another guy, love him. A lot of Big East guys, it's a lot of Big East guys. Him and Andre Jackson. I just feel like Andre Jackson is, especially with seeing, with a lot of these role players, I was like, he's just going to be a connector.
Yeah.
Like I have him going to Memphis. I'm like, with them living, with what's his name faced? Why am I blanking on his name? Dillon
Brooks.
Dillon Brooks leaving. Just put him in there, and like you get less antics, and a little bit more, you're gonna get a contributor, you're gonna get a leader, and all that. I love Andre Jackson too. And who was the other one more guy? I really like a lot of guys in this class. That's why I'm hoping the Knicks somehow get in this draft and somehow get a pick. Jalen Hood-Schifino too, man. I feel like I know it maybe, you hear a lot of Darren Williams thing, but it's like I see it.
Yeah.
And if he can improve some of like the, the shooting and all that, I could definitely see him being that type of player. That's why I feel like he's, I have him in that Utah around there. I feel like Utah, you're like, hey, we had him this version. Let's try to get him again and get our point guard of the future and all that. But let me get your take on a couple guys. And obviously, GG Jackson is a very polarizing player as far as range, as far as how do people feel his talent translates at the next level. Obviously he's extremely gifted, right? We know what he can do with the ball in his hand. He's, he could score and all that. Everything he does is like, you just vision. You're like, wow, if everything reaches to its potential, you might get yourself an all-star. But there's the other side, right? There's the other side that's like, oh my God, I could, if it's bad, he's not in the league in a few years. And I see that, and especially some of the body language, the defensive, liabilities. But I also am like, all right, that's true. The other thing's true, but it's like, he's also reclassified. He's the youngest. I think he's the youngest person in this draft, right?
Yeah.
He reclassified. Yeah. He reclassifies, supposed to go to UNC, goes to South Carolina. They're not really good. They don't have a lot of talent. So I get a lot of his frustrations and all that, but how do you analyze GG Jackson? Because he's very, everyone has, it's either they like him or they don't. There's no in between with him. It's just like, yeah, I think he's a lottery pick. Oh no, I think he's second round pick. I wouldn't touch him with anything.
No, for sure. I think Jackson for me is a guy who I like relatively. But again, there are some concerns for sure. I can't just gloss over them. But I think fit is really important for him. Going to a situation that has a stable environment, a good head coach that's going to hold him accountable and get him to buy into a system. I really equate it to like Michael Porter Jr. is a guy in the Nuggets who was labeled as a selfish player, buys into a championship role as a third option. And again, it's with Jackson. I think he's got the talent. It's just about the buy-in. It's about, he's got the physical tools, 6'9", athletic. Just if you can buy in on that defensive end of the floor and try to let the offense kind of come to you, I really think that he's got a nice baseline of skills where I'm pretty comfortable taking him top 20, even higher than that. Just on the flash and the upside that's shown. It's just you need the buy-in, but you just need a situation for him that's ideal. And I think there's a couple teams in that range that kind of would fit the bill for him as far as a stable environment. Like if you go to a Golden State, you go to a Miami, go to a Utah Jazz situation. Like I think those are some teams that would really, really be ideal for him as far as maybe not giving him like all the runway in the world, because I think that's also not really that good as well. Giving someone just a free reign to just make mistakes. That's not really for the best sometimes. You have to be accountable, like we said. And you can play through mistakes, but you have to have that buy-in and be accountable for what you're doing out on the court. So I think
Mm-hmm.
going to the situation is big time for him, and I think the buy-in. I think those are the two main things. So I really like the talent, and I like his baseline of skills that he has. Just it's about the buy-in and what he can bring to a franchise.
You made a good point, and I never thought about him and Michael Porter
Yeah,
because Michael Porter was maybe not to that extreme because he had he didn't play a lot of basketball obviously in Missouri, so we
right.
didn't see a lot of sample size. But that's a great comparison because had Michael Porter Jr. went to let's say
Kings.
the Kings or the Knicks, like, is he in the league still? Is he
Right.
bouncing around? Is he on team 4 already? Like, because he's being forced to, because everyone's thinking, well, he was the number one player in the country. We need him to be, to hurry up and be good. He went to the perfect situation where they didn't rush him, all that, and he was able to build. And now teach him how to buy in. Like, yeah, there's times where Porter, he's feeling himself and he's going to shoot the ball. He's going to shoot that thing, and just, he has some good moments this year in the playoffs, but I think if Gigi, if he goes to the right program, I think he's going to be all right. I think he could be all right. And if he buys in, put him in the G League for the first year, let him, work out some things and all that. I think that Michael Porter path could be a path of similar size too, right? Scores and
Yep.
all that. But that's a good point. I never put the 2 and 2 together, but I think that's a good comparison. And if you view it that way, and you build them that way, the same way you guys did with Michael Porter, then you look at Michael Porter. He was a nice piece for a championship team, fourth option, and you put him in there. Yeah, he's gonna have games where he's like, all right, Michael, what the hell are you doing? But there's gonna be games where it's like, he got 4 threes, he got 5 threes, and then he's improved defensively, right? We talked about the same thing defensively, like they had the same like their turnstiles, right?
Right.
And Michael Porter still had issues in the playoffs, but there was moments too where it was like, oh, all right, he's putting in work. He's actually doing good defensively. So I think that's a good path if you're Gigi and whoever team drafts Gigi to take that path the same way that Michael Porter. Michael Porter, number one recruit and all that, and all, same thing. Gigi Jackson, number one player in the country and all that. They thought they were going to be the number one picks coming out. Didn't work out. They're going to drop, but that doesn't mean that might be a blessing in disguise.
Right.
Because Michael Porter still got his max contract and all that. He still got the bag.
Money.
That's all that really matters. You got your bag and you're a world champion.
Yep.
You got your max contract, you're a world champion, and you're still young enough where you could get better, and there's still all-star aspirations. So I think that's a good one. I didn't think about that. I gotta jot that down though, but that's a good one and all that. But yeah, he's polarizing. Amani Bates. Another one.
Like that. Yeah.
Another guy. Number one player in the country. We, Sports Illustrated, all these magazines and all that. And I feel more comfortable that Gigi's going to be first round pick.
Yep.
Where Amani, he's probably going to be in the second round. He could be undrafted. He obviously had some stuff off the court and all that. And there's kind of the same things that we talked about with Gigi that we have with Amani and all that. So how do you feel about Amani?
Yeah, I think Amani for me, I'm higher on Gigi Jackson than him. Just Amani's skill set for me, I think what he was in college was more of the guy, right? And I think at the next level, that's not going to be the case. No team's going to give him the ball and say, hey, go make a ton of pick and roll reads and make plays for us, right? I think the thing for Amani Bates is that, like we said with Gigi, the same thing. Can you get that buy-in to be an ancillary piece to a good team, right? And I think he's got, like we said, the physical tools to be really good. He's 6'9", really lengthy defender, guy who can shoot the basketball, playing off the ball. Like, I just think there are ways in which Bates could be a contributor. You know what I mean? He's not just like pigeonholed into being like a point guard. Like he could run options on the ball and things like that. But I just think him and Gigi are kind of like parallel as far as like situation is going to be really important for those guys and buy-in, because I think we've seen interest in the draft before where guys who were the guys and tried to be the guys are out of the league right now. So I think that's the difference between being in the league or being out of the league. So like we mentioned with MPJ, he's making a max contract. He just won a ring. And there's certain guys who, if you have that buy-in and commitment and say, you know what, maybe I'm not the first option, but let me be a good contributor on the team. I think those guys could be role players, maybe not role players, but starter-esque players in that aspect. So I think for Bates and Jackson in particular, I think those guys have a buy-in that they need to do, but also too, I think they have skill sets where they could be good contributors right away, as far as what they can bring to the table.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting draft day to see, you know, especially with Amani, because like I said, I feel like Gigi's, I think he's a first round pick, probably going to
Yep.
be in his 20s most likely, but where Amani goes, and I just did a mock draft recently, and I had him going in the second round to Phoenix, because I feel like you put him around KD, right? A lot of people compared him to KD, right? So what better person to learn from than KD himself to teach him how to be? Because and then KD's talked about him a lot and all that, and that'd be someone good to learn from, to know how to be a pro, and maybe put him like, hey man, it could look at him, man. You went from being the potential number one pick, and now you're a two-way player,
Right.
and like you could be out of the league, and this could be it. So let's get it going. Let's figure this thing out and all that. So, he's a talent though. He definitely is a talent, could score from anywhere, range and all that. Obviously, there's things he needs to work on, get stronger, finishing on the rim, being doing any type of playmaking. He has a quick trigger finger and all that, but it's gonna be interesting to see where it goes. Are there any other guys that that we're not talking about that you like, that are maybe slipping that not a lot of people talking about?
Yeah, I think you mentioned before Andre Jackson for me is a guy I
That's
really
my
like.
guy, yeah.
He can't shoot the ball right now, which is
Nah.
obviously a really big problem. But I really like what he brings in all other aspects of the game: leadership, passing ability, rebounding, like cutting, good defender. Like he just
Yep.
has really good things that I like that he brings to the table. Like we mentioned, like that you need for role players to win games, and I think he's a guy who could do that if he's next to the right personnel, for
Yeah.
sure. So I really want him for the Nuggets pick at 37 and 40. They have 2 picks in the second round. They actually made a trade during the finals. Funny enough.
Yeah, but OKC, yeah.
Yeah, so that would be a really good pick for them. But I
Yeah,
also
especially
just
if
like
Bruce
Andre
Brown
in total.
leaves, man,
Yeah,
you just put him right in, and that
yep,
could be your guy.
that'd be awesome. And I like Julian Strawther as well from Gonzaga. Really good shooter.
Yeah.
6'7", really good rebounder as well. You just need guys like that in the league who are specialists. You know what I mean? I think he's more than a specialist, but I think that his calling card is going to be shooting the basketball.
Yeah.
And not the best defender right now, but like I said, really tall, can rebound, big guard, could pass the ball a little bit. So he's another guy I really like. Him and Andre Jackson are 2 guys in the second round that I like. And like I mentioned before, I really like guys in that range that could contribute for different teams. I think that the depth of that class really goes into like the top 40-ish toward 45.
Yep, that's where you're gonna see a lot of teams try to make moves to get into. I definitely could see the Knicks try to make it to get a move with it right now. They don't even have a pick, but
Yeah, they need to trade in for one.
yeah. And last year they punted on the first round, and they got abundance of picks. I definitely think they're gonna make a move to try to get, because that's where I feel like that's where the meat is, in that 30 to 40 range, 42 range, where you can get some. You're gonna get a first round talent. There's gonna be wings. They're gonna drop and all that. We might see someone, that we thought was a top 20 pick, and it always happened, right? That was like Jaden Hardy last year. We thought he was a lottery pick, top 20, and he goes to the second round and all that. So it always happens in the draft. So, but CT, my man, this was a pleasure, brother.
Chris, thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it. It's great to be back. I know our last podcast was the mock draft. So it's great to be back. Thanks for having me on, and especially after the Nuggets won. Great timing.
Perfect timing. I was hoping. I was like, all right, we're gonna do the show today. Hopefully they win. Hopefully they win. I know CT be hyped and all that, but yeah, it's been a while and all that. My schedule was crazy last year. I didn't get to even do a lot of podcasts last year because of work schedule. I was working overnights. I was a zombie doing podcasts. So back to a regular schedule, work schedule and all that. So able to get back on the podcast grind, but had to hit you up, had to get you on the pod. We, got into the Denver Nuggets, and it just happened to be their world champions now. Talking about St. John's back on, hopefully back and making New York City pop in as far as college basketball. Got to talk about the NBA draft, which is next week, right? It flies
Yeah.
back. It's like, right, man. I looked at my calendar. I was like, oh, I got plenty of time to do all these I was like, hold up, it's only 8 days, 9, 10 days, whatever it is, 9, 10 days. I'm like, wow, it creeps up on you. But like I said, it's been a pleasure, chopping up UCT. But before we sign off, tell the people where they could find you on your social media accounts and any projects you got coming up.
Yeah, first off, Chris, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. Always great talking with you. You do a great job with the podcast and
Appreciate it.
everything like
Appreciate
that.
it.
So keep going for sure. Yeah, you guys can follow me on Twitter at CT Fazio 24. I got a Nuggets piece coming out this week. I think it will be pretty interesting for everyone to see just my kind of like progression as a fan and what I thought about the run, which is pretty cool. And then probably have another draft piece coming out next week before the draft, just to have some content for draft week. So those are the two things I'm working on. Then also you check out my work at crownhoops.com.
Awesome. But like I said, appreciate CT coming on the podcast. You'll definitely see him on more. He's maybe the happiest face I've ever seen. Well, we don't have this a lot where, your teams win a championship, your college basketball team is on a high, in the draft and all that. But CT, my man, like I said, appreciate you having me on the podcast. You can follow me at Off the Ball Pod, most active. You can follow. Make sure to like, subscribe, wherever you're watching, listening to your podcast. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Off the Ball Network. Make sure to go subscribe on Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. Also, my college basketball podcast with my guy, Kev Lucas, Get a Bucket podcast. We dive into college basketball, recruiting, all that good stuff. So check that out. Available on all podcast platforms. But like I said, that's CT. I'm Chris LeBron. Off the Ball podcast.